Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Kaylee and these are my books. So today's video is a video where I get to talk about my favorite dark romances that I've read so far, and this video is extra exciting because it's actually a collab video with my friend Hannah. Her channel will be linked below and we are basically both talking about our dark romances today. So after you're done watching my video, you can go watch her video. She loves dark romances, I love dark romances, we became fast friends. We also like a lot of other genres, but of course this video is dedicated to dark romances. And I hope you're able to find some new recs. I will admit though, my dark romance recommendations, they're not gonna be anything that's completely surprising because I am new to this genre. I really only discovered dark romance a couple of months ago, and therefore I kind of started with some popular reads. So I don't have these in any particular order. I just have my top 8 favorite dark romances, and while there is no particular order, there is one that is on top, okay? So I'll get to my favorite at the very end of the video, but the 7 that I'll talk about before I get to my favorite one are just kind of in no order. So first on the list is Pestilence. This is the first book in the Four Horsemen series, and it's kind of a crazy premise. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse come to Earth to mess things up for humans because it is the apocalypse, and each of them has their own love story with a human. So yes, it is humans falling in love with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Important note, because I thought this before I read this book. I thought that these books were about centaurs. 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Horsemen. I thought it meant a horseman, like a centaur. And I still picked it up and read it. I was surprised when I read it when it was not actually about a centaur. I was confused. Because, you know, like, how would that work? But this is not a centaur romance story. This is about a man on a horse. He happens to own a horse. That is important to him. But it is about a man, okay? Probably no one needed that clarification except for me, but I just wanted to make that clarification just in case. Side note though, if you know of any centaur romance books, I'm interested. So I've only read Pestilence, which is the first book in the series. There are 3 other books, War, Death, and Famine. And I really want to read the other 3 books, but only Pestilence is on this list since that's the only one I've read. And Pestilence is like so much fun because this is like this super powerful guy. He's an evil villain because he's spreading the plague across people. But you know, he has a soft side. And this woman is teaching him that humans are not all bad and he needs to take pity on them. So it's enemies to lovers. But I do want to note too that this woman, she is a baddie. She is awesome. She is not some like victim throughout the story. She is like super cool. I loved seeing her being an active character in this story. I loved seeing him grow to be a bit more humane throughout the story. Love and enemies to lovers plotline. It was fantastic. It was so much fun, and it was oddly wholesome even with these dark themes. Which also, side note, these are dark romances. They have a lot of triggers in them, okay? If you need triggers, please look up trigger warnings for all of these titles before you read them, because all of these titles do have extensive trigger warnings lists. Next in my list is Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. So this is a mafia romance, and it is the first mafia romance in Sophie Lark's like extensive mafia romance universe, because she writes a bunch of different series, each series with a bunch of different books that are all set in this greater universe that have Easter eggs and kind of tied together. Think like the Marvel movies, but the mafia romance version. So again, there are a million books in Sophie Lark's mafia universe. I have only read the first one, Brutal Prince, but it was so incredible. 5 out of 5 stars, absolutely loved it. The entire book, I was just laughing and smiling, like my cheeks hurt from reading this book because it was so ridiculous, it was so entertaining, it was so fun to read. It was just so readable. You kept wanting to flip those pages. And the romance was so much fun to read about, but also just the shenanigans, the general shenanigans that these characters got up to was incredible. It's like, you never knew if they were gonna murder each other or like fall in love with each other. Like, it could have gone either way, you know? The next book on this list, also by Sophie Lark, is There Are No Saints. This is not part of her mafia universe though. This is a serial killer romance book, and it was incredible. It was so much fun. Serial killers in books, fictional serial killers, are so fun for me to read about. I absolutely love, like, if a book has a serial killer in it, that's a buzzword for me. I'm going to pick it up. And this one, just again, the romance was incredibly toxic but so fun to read about, because it was like watching a train wreck, you know? You're just like, oh my god, you cannot look away. It reminded me a lot of the Hannibal Lecter TV show. It had some elements of like those really quirky, crazy serial killer moments. Same with like Criminal Minds. Think like that level of serial killers. So very dark, but very fun. And basically we have two rival artists who also both happen to be serial killers. Not sure what Sophie Lark is saying about artists, but apparently you gotta watch out for serial killers within the art scene. Basically, this woman, unbeknownst to her, becomes a pawn in the games that these two serial killers play with each other because they hate each other. And there is obviously like one kind of good one and one kind of bad one. And so we're just watching this woman trying to make it as an artist and trying to survive through these two serial killers. And falling in love with one of them. Following along the serial killer trend, next on my list is the Mindfuck series. So this is another serial killer romance, but it's a female serial killer, so slightly different vibes. Not slightly, very different vibes. And this is a female serial killer, but it's a serial killer you root for. She is revenge killing. So everyone that she kills is like very satisfying because they're just all terrible people. And then an FBI agent, a male FBI agent, gets assigned to this serial killer's case. And while he's investigating her as a serial killer, he doesn't know it's her, obviously, he also starts to date her. So it's very dramatic. So much fun. The serial killer plotline is like kind of separate to the romance plotline. So this is actually a dark romance series that I could see some thriller lovers enjoying as well, because there is like a full thriller plot throughout this series. I'm saying series because this is a series made up of 5 novellas, and each one is around like 100 to 150 pages. And they're so bingeable, like they all end on a cliffhanger. I just read them all at once. Like I only was trying to read the first one. The next thing I knew, I had read all 5 and it was the end of the day. So I treat this series kind of as just like one big book because they don't really end. There's no like through plot lines for each little novella. It really just feels like each novella is one piece of a bigger book. I was so emotionally invested in what was going on and I was shocked by what was happening. It was so much fun, A++. The next book I have to talk about is another series. I'm not done yet with the series, but I have read the first 3 in the series, and that is the Plated Prisoner series. So this is a fantasy romance book, and it's kind of like a King Midas retelling. And basically we have this woman, she is all gold, and she is the king's kind of like pet. It's really a gross relationship between her and the king. The king is said to be able to turn everything into gold, and he turned his favorite woman into gold. And she's a saddle, and saddle is a term for kind of like a harem for the king. And basically this is a book about her finding herself, finding her inner strength, her inner power, and also falling in love with someone, not the king that is imprisoned her. I just think it's like a bit of a spoiler to tell you who exactly she falls in love with, but this is a fantasy romance series, so like romance is central to the story. It's just very slow burn, so you don't even like find out who the main male love interest is in the first book. I love fantasy books. I was really invested in the fantasy world within the Plated Prisoner series. I had a great time with books 1, 2, and 3. I have book 4 slated on my TBR for this month, the month of October, and book 5 is not yet out, so I'm almost caught up, but not quite. Glint, which is book 2, was my absolute favorite of the series so far, and I highly recommend this series for fantasy romance lovers, but just you have to know it's very slow burn. Next on my list is Hate by Tate James, and this is book 1 in the Madison Kate series. This is another series that I have only read the first 2 books in. I'm hoping to finish the series this month as well, but I still wanted to add it on my list because I loved Hate, which is the first book. I liked the second book a lot too, but the specific book on this list is Hate. This is a dark reverse harem college romance slash kind of mafia vibe romance as well. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but basically there is this woman, her name is Madison Kate, and she gets framed for this huge like crime that happens in her town. and her father is kind of the head honcho of this town. He's not a great guy. He does a lot of really morally great things to get power, including having his daughter be a scapegoat for this huge crime that happened. And she gets put in jail for a while. She gets out of jail. She's able to go back to the town where her father is now in charge. And her father is away on vacation. So when she shows up to her dad's house to stay there, the three guys that she believes had a huge hand in framing her for this crime is living in her father's house. So this is enemies to lovers, and they also all go to the same college as well. So it's a bit of a school romance too. But we have some gang violence in this story. We have like mafia vibes with the organized crime, and you know, we have the reverse harem. We have some bullying as well. I think this could be classified as a bully romance too. I really like Madison Kate in this series. I think she's a really strong woman to be reading about, and I love her interactions with these guys, and I love the three guys in this story as well. I do want to give a warning though that these books do end on cliffhangers. Hate ends on a cliffhanger, book 2 ends on a cliffhanger. I'm assuming book 3 ends on a cliffhanger as well. So just make sure you have access to all of them before you start, because you need to pick up the next one as soon as you finish the last one, because they always end on huge cliffhangers, like huge. The end of book 1, I could not imagine reading book 1 without having immediate access to book 2. No, that would have been horrible if you read it when it first came out. I'm so glad that they're backlist now. Next on my list, I'm cheating a little bit because I have the Twisted series by Anna Huang on my list, and I know this is like 4 books, so I really should have just chosen one of them to put on here, but I love all of them except the first. The Twisted series begins with Twisted Love, and then Twisted Games, and then Twisted Hate, and then Twisted Lies. Twisted Love is the only one that I did not love, kind of ironic given the name, but I still recommend starting with that one because there are some events that happen towards the end of Twisted Love that kind of impact the rest of the books. However, for the most part, the story is contained within each book. Each book features a new couple, so the couple's entire story is told in one book. I guess if I had to choose a favorite of the Twisted series, it would be book 2, which is Twisted Games. This is a princess bodyguard romance, and all of these romances as well have like these greater plots outside of the romance going on that give it a bit of a thriller feel, in my opinion. I think it's a bit spoilery for me to like kind of give you a preview of this bigger thriller plot happening in each of the books, but rest assured there is romance and then there's this dark plot, and the romance kind of blossomed through the dark plot. But each of these books, I think they can start out feeling a bit like just contemporary light romances, but they all get pretty dark. I love the characters in the Twisted series. We're kind of following just one friend group, and each girl in the group gets her own book, so it's really fun to see cameos of the other couples show up in future books. But yeah, while Twisted Love, the first in the Twisted series, was not my favorite, I still think you should try to read it, and if you just think it's okay, go on to book 2. I really believe it gives you important context for book 2. But just to be clear, I gave book 1 3 stars, and then I gave book 2, book 3, and book 4 all 5 stars. All right, so those were my top 7 dark romances. We do have an 8th in this video, and I did let you know that they're not ranked except for my number 1, because I do know what my number 1 dark romance is. So drum roll please. My number 1 dark romance that I've read, my favorite dark romance I've ever read before, is Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. And I actually have Hannah to thank for gifting me this copy, because I read this through a library hold and I didn't own this copy. You might have noticed as I was talking about all the other books, I don't own any of them. And Hannah just gifted me this copy of Sea of Ruin, which is perfect because we're collabing on this video together, and this is my favorite dark romance. So Hannah is the nicest person ever. Please go check out her channel and watch this video that we are collabing on. I can't wait to know what she put in this video for her favorite dark romances. But for now, my favorite dark romance I've ever read is Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. This is a pirate romance, and I know these are all dark. That's the name of the video, it's dark romance. But I just want to let you know, this is super dark, okay? Super dark. I think out of all the books on my list, this is probably the darkest. We follow a female pirate captain who has kind of a poly relationship going on, and the 2 men involved is another pirate captain and a pirate hunter for the British Navy. Lots of drama there, as you can imagine, but I just found this plot so smart. Like the plot twists in here were all incredible in my opinion, and the way that the characters got out of the situations that they got placed in, because they were placed in these horrible situations, and the way the characters thought about getting themselves out of these situations was just so smart. So I found the writing incredible, I found the plot incredible, I found the pacing fantastic, and the reveals along the way were so satisfying, and the character work was so good. I really feel like these characters felt like real people. Like, I loved the characters so much, especially our main heroine in the story. She was amazing. She was so badass. I loved reading about her. And I just can't say enough good things about this book. I mean, this really, I need to read more pirate books. This made me, for literally like, I think 3 weeks after I read this book, for 3 solid weeks, all of the ambiance I used to read with and just to have as background for like general life tasks was pirate ambiance, which is a little bit embarrassing to say. I just was so obsessed with the vibes of this world that Pam Godwin created that I had like spooky ship ambiance or pirate captain ambiance or out on the seas in a storm ambiance. It was just incredible. So this book really, really like, it made me obsessed with boats for a while, the ocean for a while. It was so much fun. Every like pirate trope you can think of that's super fun to read about is in this book, but in a way that they feel fresh and they don't feel cheesy, in my opinion. I love this book. This is gonna be, I read this book this year, and this is gonna be one of my favorite books of the year, if not possibly my favorite book of the year. I loved it so much. I read it just like 2 months ago, and I already want to reread it, especially now that I have a physical copy. It's so, so good. If you like dark romances, please try picking this up because it's incredible, fantastic, amazing. Insert all the other complimentary words here. All right, so that is it. Those are my top 8 dark romances that I've currently read. I hope you were able to find out about something new. However, I do know that many of these books are just what's popular. So I'm hoping in the future, as I continue to explore the genre of dark romance, I can find some more diamonds in the rough for all of you and find some ones that less people have talked about, don't have as many ratings. But for now, these are the ones that I stand by as being the best of what I have read. So leave me any recommendations for future dark romances that I should explore in the comments below, and let me know in the comments what your favorite dark romances are. I currently have a list of Kindle Unlimited recommendations for dark romances that's over 100 books long. I need to get through it. And please make sure to check out Hannah's video about her top dark romances. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. Bye!